So one of the things I wanted to talk today, coming back to the idea of labour, is this book here. So you might have come across this before, you may not. This is the Positive Birth book. Has anybody got a copy of this? This is the book I wish I had written if I had had the time. So this is by someone called Millie Hill, who's gone on to be quite a celebrity in the birth world. And she wrote this book really as an answer to all the things that annoyed her about pregnancy, and particularly birth, in terms of what we talk about here, all the negative stories that we hear all the time about giving birth. And so she wrote this book to help other mums to have happier births, because as she says, you know, in her opening paragraph, you know, happy mum, happy baby, you know, and she talks about this idea that, you know, healthy baby is always the optimum aim of a birth, but sometimes the mother gets forgotten in all of that. And actually the healthy baby is the baseline, that's the given, you know, but on top of that, actually mum's well-being in labour is really important, because, you know, you have to hit the ground running after you've had that baby, because that baby needs your complete attention, and you need to be happy, healthy, you know, mentally and physically. And if you've had a traumatic labour, you can imagine, can't you, how difficult it's going to be to then go on and do all those things, which you need to go instantaneously, because when that baby comes, they're not going to wait around for you to be, you know, feeling a bit better and kind of, you know, being able to, and even if after C-section, you know, it's really difficult to stand up or sit down. And so this is a really, really good book, and she talks an awful lot about the things I talk about. So if you've, you know, got time and you want to sit and have a read, I would definitely get hold of this book, Millie Hill, The Positive Birth Book. And just looking, rereading it before I came out, and in her first opening paragraph, she was saying, you know, that in the, you know, we're mammals, you know, we're mammals, and in the animal world, no other mammal, gives birth on their back, but also no other mammal gives birth in a place where they don't feel safe and comfortable, in a place that isn't familiar, and in a space that's really brightly lit. So if any of you have had pets, or if you kind of understand on an anthropological level how animals birth in the wild, they will go and find a safe space, they will go somewhere dark and somewhere that is familiar to them, and these are the best places to give birth. So obviously you can see straight away, you know, a hospital suite is the complete antithesis of that, which is why home births generally have the best outcomes. If you look at all the outcomes and where people give birth, then home births actually have a higher percentage of outcome success than hospital births do. And obviously that, you know, we have to take into consideration that you're only going to have a home birth if you're 100% healthy, fit, and there are no issues at bay that would require you to have hospital births. So obviously, you know, we have to take that into consideration as well. But generally, mums have happier, smoother, easier labours at home because they're in a familiar place. But having said that, you can do that with your space in the hospital. And it's something that I talk about in the birthing workshops as well, is that, you know, you make that space your own. I don't know if they do visits anymore. You used to be able to go and visit, not anymore. I think they stopped that even before COVID, actually. I don't even think it's a COVID thing anymore. Yeah, so you can't even go and visit the space now, so that you can kind of at least feel a little bit comfortable. So you're on a bit of the back foot. But I always say to mums, like, take in things that will help you to feel familiar. So you have familiar music. Take in stuff that you can hear, like, audibly, that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel familiar. Take in a blanket or a pillow or a dressing gown, or, you know, something, your slippers, anything that helps you feel like this is your space. It's basically, you know, mark your territory when you get in there, when you get into the room. I don't even think they let you have candles anymore, you know, but mums used to take scented candles in, that kind of thing. If you can't take scented candles in anymore, take some fairy light. You know, if you use like these, you know, these are pretty good. You know, you can get these anywhere, battery operated, and if you screw them up into a little ball as well, they make quite a nice little bunch of lights. So all these little tips and tricks that you can do to take in with you, and get the lights turned down. You know, a lot of the things that they do in the main hospitals are things that don't happen in the birthing centres, like at Samuel Johnson. You know, so if a mum wants to birth in very low light, if the midwives need to come and do a cervical check, they will get a torch out. You know, that's what they do at Samuel Johnson. They won't slam the lights on so that they can see what's happening. And it's little things like that that make all the difference in terms of, you know, holding that space for you. So yeah, so just bear that in mind, that actually birthing in the dark or in dim light is something that we don't often talk about in birthing, but it is quite it's up there in terms of things that can help.
I've got a question actually. If you're not a first time mom, you'll probably think this is a really silly question, but at the hospitals, are you in your own room, or is it like I'm just imagining, well, is it like a ward with curtains?
Yeah, it depends where you go actually. In the bigger birthing centres, I mean, and I don't know if this is still the case, but what you tend to happen is you have like a antenatal ward where there'll be however many beds are in there of women like in early labour. And then you have a delivery suite with all the bells and whistles. And when you are deemed to be ready to go into established labour and ready for delivery, you'll get whisked off into this delivery room. That's how it used to be. Not all hospitals would do that. I mean, a lot of hospitals you'll have your own space from the beginning. I don't know if you can remember, Sophie, where did you have your baby?
I was in Stoke. We were actually ironically really lucky because my husband had shingles, so we got isolated to one room for the whole 3 days that we were there, which was really handy, but that's how they work. You're in the delivery suite, and then I think about 4 hours later, once you're rested and recovered, they ship you off to what is an antenatal ward, and you're probably in a bay with lots of women.
Yeah, and then after your baby, you then go back into the postnatal ward with all the screaming babies.
Sorry, postnatal, yeah.
And the new moms. So that is generally how it works. And that's why Samuel Johnson was such a lovely space to birth, because actually you just have one room. And you'd get looked after and mothered, but I don't even think it's open anymore.
It's closed.
I think it is closed.
Still closed.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time.
Wants to give birth though.
No, it's shut when you Google it. It's shut.
Who is it?
Yeah. I don't know if they'll open it again.
And you're further along than me as well.
Yeah.
They said Burton straight away. That's it.
They've wanted to shut that for a while. It's a political thing. It's a political and financial thing, and they have been wanting to shut it for a long time. And actually, as soon as COVID came out, they shut it. So any excuse. And I did have a really nasty feeling that they wouldn't open it again. And I really hope I'm wrong, because it is spaces like that that make all the difference. So we'll see.
I think they would have opened it by now.
It's being consulted at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good. They're talking about it. So
It's all being talked about.
That's good. So let's hope all the midwives at Samuel Johnson can dig their heels in. Having said that, there are a couple of other hospitals in the area that have like a midwifery-led unit piggybacked onto a big maternity unit, so that Derby and I think Good Hope do as well now. So there are other options. So if you think that you don't want to go into a big maternity unit where your options are quite limited and you don't have any outstanding medical conditions which mean that you have to have a higher level of consultancy and care, then you might want to consider actually doing, and if it's close enough for you, going to somewhere like Derby, because they do have a midwifery unit bolted on. So if you have a straightforward labour, you can have a room to yourself, you can have a water birth, you can have bouncy balls, and it'll all be there. You have the lights dimmed, you know, and you can have a midwifery-led birth, which is like a hands-off birth.
If there's talks of induction, is it just
no? You've got to go to Burton,
Just
that's one of those
do what
things.
they tell me to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, you are in that category. Induction is very, very much 100% a maternity unit, because you need more care.
Yeah.
So so you've got what you need.
Yeah, with the because of having diabetes as well, there's probably going to need like insulin drip and stuff like that. So
hospital it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's just
I'd
no way
accepted
around
that before, so it's fine.
Yeah, there's no way around it. But I think, you know, you have to understand that with something like that, you need the care.
Yeah.
And this is what I always say, you know, in the way that we have this the system here, we've got the best of both worlds. If we want to squat in a corner, we can. But if we need all the bells and whistles and all the medical care, we've got that as well. But we can make our choices. So bear that in mind.
I agree with you though. I had a dark room and I had my earphones in and lovely music and like I had a photo slideshow and it was actually really lovely. And that was in a hospital. That was in a midwifery-led unit, but it was a clinical environment and it was still lovely. So.
Yeah, it is possible. Like I said, if you haven't got any issues, like even with an induction, you can make them turn the lights down, Cassie. You can put your music on. You can have your little lights. You know. You know, you have to
make it like a spa.
Make it like a spa.
Somehow I think it might be like a spa.
Yeah, but that's the other thing. The dimmer the lights, the less you see all of the equipment.
Yeah.
Even with the section, I got to choose our own music, so we knew what he was going to be. Well, we had a CD, and I really hoped it'd be born at that song when he was. So.
Does he like that song?
He does actually. The Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. So and he just I loved like a baby, and then
such a lovely song to be born.
He started singing it the other day, and I melted.
Oh, Claire.
But we took the time to make those choices anyway, because so much of it was taken out of control because it was a planned section. But just by even just having that, there was still. I mean, it all went pear-shaped because they couldn't make the CD work, and then someone else had to go and get something else.
Of course it did.
Yeah, it's never going to quite go smoothly, is it?
But you know, that was so important, wasn't it? Like you say, just having the tiniest element of control of you having a choice.
And it was, we talked to them before about doing skin to skin before they cut the cord and just little things like that. And my sister had this sort of similar situation, and she had their own clip for the cord, so it wasn't a food clip thing. It was a little made threaded rainbow one. So they had that choice as well. So there's still the choices that you can, and not quite the same, but
it's important.
It still made me feel that I was doing something, at least something myself.
Well, something special, because we have to remember, but it's so special birthing your children. It's one of the most incredible things you'll ever do in your life, birthing your children, however they come. I had a C-section as well, and it's just the most special thing you'll ever do. And so anything you can do to make it special in these unspecial environments and unspecial circumstances that you might have, having to have all these drips and things. So you do what you can to make it special for you. So you start planning your playlist now, Kathy. Does that all make sense? So just having that little bit of extra stuff. Okay, so did I finish asking if anybody wanted anything? Did I? You're all alright. Okay, marvellous. So if you could come into a comfortable seated position, and as you're all up against the wall, you might find it more comfortable to actually lean up against the wall so that you are completely supported. So if you're tired, if your back is hurting, then leaning against the wall will offer you that level of support. You can put your cushion behind you if that feels more comfortable. Regarding the legs, again, that will depend on how you feel. If you don't have any outstanding issues with your hips, with your pelvis, if you haven't got any varicose veins, then sitting cross-legged can be more comfortable because at least it keeps the spine in the upright position. However, not everybody is comfortable sitting cross-legged, so at that point you might want to either take the legs straight out or even kind of take them out in a bit of a diamond shape, or even bring the soles of your feet together if you want to stretch the insides of your legs. So you've got options when you're sitting cross-legged to make it comfortable. Okay, and then what I'd like you to do is place one hand on the centre of your chest, and this is your, we call this the heart space in yoga. So this is energetically our centre for our heart and for our emotions. And you're going to place your other hand over your baby. And just rest your hand wherever in your abdomen you feel that your baby is. So again, if you're in the very early stages, you might not have had any movement yet, there may not be a very pronounced bump. So just place your hand where for you feel energetically your baby is. And then for some of you, as you get more progressed through your pregnancy, you're going to be very aware of that presence of your baby. You're going to have a bigger bump. You might even feel a bum or an elbow or a knee or something digging in your ribs.
I don't know where he's gone. He's not there anymore. He's fine again.
And then just closing your eyes and just bringing your attention to the hand that is over the chest, over the heart space. And then what I'd like you to do is to just feel what happens here when you breathe in and when you breathe out. So just feel that gentle lifting of the rib cage as you breathe in, and the gentle dropping down of the rib cage as you breathe out. So we worked last week on sideways breathing. So we were looking at horizontal breath. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the video, the recording yet, this is a really interesting and helpful way to direct your breath as you get towards the end of your pregnancy, when your diaphragm and your belly breathing isn't accessible anymore because your baby is pushing all the way up. So as well as breathing horizontally, so feeling that your breath is moving up into your chest, can you also think about breathing, vertically? Vertically we think about breathing. Can you think about breathing horizontally, where your ribs and your lungs are expanding out to the sides as well? So getting a sense of broadening across your chest. And just take a few breaths, being aware of the breath in the chest. So vertical and horizontal expansion as you breathe in. So it just gives you a little bit more space to breathe into. And then just become aware of this energetic, emotional connection between the hand that's over your heart space and the hand that is touching your baby. So feeling this energetic connection between you and your baby, one that is based on the energy of love, this unbroken connection that you will have with your baby. And then you can just relax your hands down. If you're sitting cross-legged, can you swap your legs the other way around so that you are stretching the other side of your pelvis? So we're going to do a little bit of energetic work now. So in yoga we work a lot with energy as well as the physical elements of our body. And I want you to work particularly with your exhalation. So the way that we work with energy and breath in yoga is that the inhalation has this sort of upward lifting energy and a sensation, and a lot of that comes from the fact that the ribs lift as you breathe out, but there is this kind of inner energy that rises up. But as we breathe out, there's this descending energy as well, and everything moves down. And this is the energy that will push your baby out of your body when the time comes. And so I want you to really connect in with this downward movement that comes with the exhale. And this is why in all of the yoga breaths that we work with, we focus on the out breath, because your out breath is going to be your best friend when you are pushing your baby out of your body. You can get a lot of pushing done when you breathe out. So as you breathe in, can you just let your hands rise up, just however they want to. And then as you breathe out, can you just bring the hands down and get a sense of this downward moving energy that comes with your exhalation. And do the same thing again. So what you might notice is that your out breath is longer than your in-breath. And then we're going to make the breath even longer by engaging the muscles around the throat. So those of you that were here, I think on week 1 where we did the ha breath, we're going to close the mouth and make that same sound. This is called the ocean breath. In yoga we call it ujjayi, or victorious breath. So we try and maintain that connection, that contraction around the throat on the inhale as well. And what you end up with is a slightly lengthened breath, but also a little sound that's a bit like the ocean, so it can be quite soothing. So just going to do that one more time. Breathing in. And then breathing out. And just really tapping into that downward movement of the exhalation. Okay, so can you take your legs wide? Is everybody comfortable in that position? You're all okay. So you might find that, again, just sitting with something underneath the sitting bones, whether it's a pillow or whether it's a block, just so that your pelvis slightly rotates forwards. So we're going to be moving the arms. So if you're flush against the wall, see what happens. If you find that you haven't got enough space there to take the arms back, you might have to come a little bit further forward. So just play around with that. We're going to use that ujjayi breath again, so that contraction around the throat, making the snoring sound on the in-breath and the out-breath. So you're going to interlace the fingers, push the palms away, and as you breathe in, you're going to raise the arms up, but at the same time push down with your legs into the ground, so you get much more of a lift through the body. Then as you breathe out, bend the elbows and bring the backs of your hands onto your head, so you feel that stretch across your shoulders. Breathe in, reach back up again, but lift the rib cage rather than lifting the shoulder girdle. And then as you breathe out, push the palms of your hands forward. So now you get a little bit of a stretch through the back of the body. And then we're going to breathe in again. Take the arms all the way up over the head, push down through the legs. Breathing out, bend the elbows, backs of the hands come onto the head. Breathe in, reach up, and again push through the legs so that you can really free up the upper body. And then breathe out, reach forward, so press the backs, the palms of the hands all the way forward. So can you just do that a few more times? So just get that running through with your breath. And if you have to take an extra breath in between, that's fine. It's nicer to run through these more slowly rather than running quickly. So we are using this stretch to make some space again between you and your baby. It's a common theme in a lot of my classes, making space for your baby. And if we press down through the legs while we raise the rib cage, that creates some space. So the next time you finish a round, you can just relax the palms down. Notice how that feels. So then we're going to come over to the side. So we're going to inhale, take the arms up, and at the top of the inhale, turn towards your right leg, and exhale and just bring the hands down over the right leg. So again, you might not get very far. And then reaching up to the center, and exhale, reach over the left leg. And then inhale and reach up, and then we'll finish exhaling, coming down through the center just to relax the wrists. Okay, can you do that again? Breathing in, reaching up, pushing down through the thighs, breathing out, coming over to one side. And coming all the way up. And exhaling to the other side. And inhaling, coming up. And then releasing the hands all the way down. And this is where you may need to come away from the wall. So now we're going to take the arms behind us. So this gives a bit of a stretch into the biceps as well as the deltoid. So you're interlacing the hands behind you. So it gives quite a nice stretch to the front of the body. I'm just going to hold this pose. And then depending on how your shoulders feel, as you breathe in, you might be able to lift the arms a little bit, but it may be just a micro move. I'll come sideways so that you can see. So inhale, a little bit of a lift. And exhaling, releasing. Keep pushing down through the legs, you've got some stability. If the hamstrings are tight, you can bend the knees, but push down through the buttocks and the heels, so you've got some resistance through the lower part of the body. And then release the hands. And just roll the shoulders back a couple of times. Okay, and then bring the soles of your feet together now. And just let the knees drop out to the side. So we're just going to do some butterfly moves. So as you breathe in, let the knees lift up, and then we're going to use the ha breath to release them down. And again, coming up. And just keep running that through with each breath. Relax your shoulders, relax your face, and relax the hips on the out breath as well. So just really let them go. So one of the things that we need to do in pregnancy yoga is kind of like a contradiction. The first thing we are wanting to do is to create some strength and stability in the pelvis, because a lot of pelvises in pregnancy don't hold themselves together, for want of a better word, because there's a lot of loosening happening. And so we have to keep the muscles strong around the pelvic girdle, which is something that I do. But at the same time, we need to be able to completely relax everything as well. Because in birth, if we are holding tension in our buttocks, in our thighs, in our pelvic floor, in our abdomen, then it's going to be harder for your baby to come out. So you need a lot of softness, a lot of spaciousness, and a lot of openness for giving birth. So we have to be able to kind of tap in to those two different things. So the next time you release the knees down, you can let them go. Just gently gather them all the way back up. And then take the feet wide and bring the soles of your feet onto the floor. And then lean back into your hands. Drop the knees over to one side. And drop the knees over to the other. Okay, so the next time you roll the knees to one side, you can actually use that position to push yourself all the way up and over onto your hands and onto your knees, or not, depending on how deft you feel today. Okay, so coming onto the hands and the knees. So again, this is the bread and butter pose for pregnancy yoga. Really nice to the back. It releases all of the tension out of the back, so if you're getting any back pain, this is a good position to come into. On top of that, it also gets rid of all the round ligament pain, all the pains in your belly that you get during pregnancy when you're upright, because the round ligaments do the job of supporting the upright belly, but not when you're on all fours. So you might find if you're getting any round ligament pain that it's gone now and it feels really, really comfortable. And we've talked about this before. So as a birthing position, you would do this leaning over a ball. Okay, because you can feel it's quite taxing on the wrists, isn't it? So we won't hold it for too long, but during labour, you would do this leaning over a ball, or even leaning over a chair. Or I have taught this leaning over a husband, probably your own, your husband or partner, leaning over them. So they're on all fours, and then you lean your elbows on their back, and it's quite comfortable actually. Okay, so we're going to do some hip circles here. We're going to use the ha breath again, and we're going to circle the hips around. So just tuning in to your breath. So as well as this is for stage 1 of labour. So moving the pelvis during stage 1 of labour allows the discomfort of the contractions to dissipate. So you only do these moves when you have a contraction. Every time your contraction stops, you can rest. You can have a cup of tea, you can read a book, you can have a chat, and depending on how far apart they are, you've got some time to rest. And then every time a contraction happens again, you get back into your preferred position and you start to move your pelvis. This also allows your baby to get into a better position for labour. So it opens up a lot of space for your baby. In pregnancy, it shifts your baby off your pelvic nerves. So I know some of you have been having a bit of sciatica, you've been having dead legs, various parts of your legs going dead, because your pelvic nerves are literally being squished by your baby and your uterus and the fluids and everything that you're holding in your pelvis at the moment. So when you come into hip circle movements, you're kind of moving your baby and all of that weight in your pelvis, you're moving it off the pelvic nerves. Okay, so from here, stretch the right leg back, push the toes into the ground, push the heel away. So this is your anti-cramp stretch. Are you all doing this? If you're getting cramp at night, are you doing this for your anti-cramp? So just pushing into the heel so that the calf muscle gets a really nice stretch. And then you're going to bring that leg, I'll come facing the front. I'll show you the move. We want to get the foot to the outside, but obviously I haven't got a baby in the way, so I can do it like that. You might, yeah, lovely Katie. Kate's got it, yeah, round the outside. You might want to kind of make a more of a circular movement. Yeah, all right?
Got there.
Got there. And then just a little bit of rocking forwards and backwards. So again, nice movement to loosen up the hips. You're right. Yeah, it's tight. Oh, well, we need to do this then. It's a good one to do. If you struggle to get the hands on the floor, and there can be various reasons for this. One of them might be you've got long legs and short arms. You know, we're all built differently, and in all the years I teach yoga, I appreciate this more and more, that there is no one position that everybody can do because we're all built differently. So if you find that you've got very long legs and a short body and short arms, you might not be able to reach the floor very easily, at which point my blocks are underneath the camera, but you could put a block, imagine this is a bigger block, put that underneath your hands so that you've got a little bit of a lift. So that's an option. And again, as I was saying earlier, in labour, yeah, perfect, so Kate's got her block, that's lovely. You'd use a ball. So again, the ball will roll forwards and backwards with you. And I keep promising we're going to do this session on the balls. It's going to come. Okay, so now we're going to rise up. So we're going to push the right foot into the ground, and that will give us this kind of trajectory to come up. See what happens, you push into the right foot, and as if by magic we float up. Then we're going to do that apana movement. So Katie, do you want to bring your foot a bit further forward so it's underneath your knee? Because if it's too far back, you've got to really work hard at your balance. So if you have the foot further forward so the shin is vertical. And the other thing to bear in mind as well is if you have everything, you can see this quite easily on the screen. If you're in this position, it's like almost balancing on a tightrope. But if you have the foot out to the side, so it's hip width apart, you've got a wider base. So you'll actually be more stable. So you're going to inhale, Ujjayi breath again, take the arms all the way up, and then we're going to do that apana movement with a ha breath. Take the arms out to the sides and up, keep pushing into the right foot and the left shin, and then a ha breath, just feeling that downward energy. And same again, breathing and pushing into the shin, the foot. And then ha breath moving down. And then next next time we'll have a little side bend as well. So you're going to push into the foot, into the shin. Now just take hold of your left wrist with your right hand. And as you breathe out, gently draw the rib cage over. So not pulling the shoulders over, pull the whole rib cage over. And then breathe in, come back to the center. Swap your hands over and then do the same on the other side. It's quite nice if you come over on the exhale. So just lifting the rib cage away from the pelvis. And then coming all the way back up. If that felt good, you can do it again. So just have another round on each side. Again, all these side bends are really nice to create some space. You have to make sure that you're actually using this part of your body, your side waist, rather than your shoulder girdle, otherwise you're just going to get tight shoulders. And then we're going to breathe in, stretch up, and then hard breath all the way down to the floor. And then we're going to slide that leg back. And then this time we're going to do a figure of 8 move. So we did this in the class last week. This is another of the birthing hip movements. So you're going to circle the left hip in one direction and then the right hip in the opposite direction, as if you're drawing a number 8 with your pelvis. And the trajectory is a horizontal figure of 8, so from side to side rather than from front to back. So rather than going forwards and backwards, you're going from side to side. You're going to use your ujjayi breathing, so again just contracting the muscles around the throat so that you create this snoring sound. So thinking of it as a closed mouth ha breath that we're also doing on the inhalation as well as the exhalation. And this is a really good go-to breath. So it's one that has kind of accompanied me for many, many years of my life. It's really good if you do sport, if you go running, because it just gives you a bit more breath, brings more oxygen into the system, gives you more control over your breathing. Okay, so from here, you're going to now take the left leg back. So you're going to push the left leg back, push the heel away, just feel that elongation through the left calf muscle. Again, anti-cramp stretch. But even if you don't get cramp, it's quite a nice way to just create a bit more space in your body. And then we're going to do that same thing again. We're going to bring the leg around. So you might want to do a bit of a circle and bring the leg all the way around. And then rocking forwards and backwards to create some space. So again, you might want to put something underneath the hands. And then we're going to push up. So you're going to make sure that your shin is in a vertical position. The knee is over the ankle. And then you push into the left foot. So you get that little bit of a lift and rise up. Tailbone lengthens. Push into the foot and into the shin. Take the arms all the way up. Ujjayi breath and then ha breath. So bring that downward force of energy. And same thing again, push into the legs, rise up. Last time. And we're going to do our side bends again. So you're going to take the arms all the way up. On the inhale, take hold of a wrist. And on the exhale, lift the rib cage away from the pelvis. So rather than pulling through the shoulders, just lift the rib cage. On the inhale, come up, keep pushing into the shin and into the foot. So that will give you stability. And then same on the other side. And coming back. And then just releasing your hands all the way down and then sliding that leg back. And then we're going to come back onto the heels. So make space for your baby. So the knees can come wide. So you've got enough room to come back onto your heels. As you breathe out, push your hands into the ground and curl the spine up to the ceiling. And then take the hips all the way back onto the heels. If you use your Ujjayi breath, this ocean breath, you've got plenty of time. And then breathing in, come back up, push your shins into the ground and rise up. And then breathing out again, roll the spine to the ceiling. Take the hips all the way back onto the heels. Take all the time. You can make your out breath really, really long. So you can stay in that position. And then on the inhale, push into the shins. And rise all the way up. So just do that a few more times. Now if you feel that you'd like to stay in the position instead of rising up and down, then stay. If you're getting much more of a stretch, much more of an opening in the back, then just keep the buttocks resting back onto the heels. You might even, if the head doesn't reach the floor, you might just want to rest your head in your hands. And keeping the attention on the breath. Slow, steady breath. With that slight contraction around the throat. Ocean breath, mimicking the sound of the waves on the ocean. It's a very calming, soothing breath. Now the next time you breathe in, come up, so you're going to push into the shins, slowly rise up. Draw the knees back into a neutral position, tuck your toes under, walk your hands back, just come and sit back on your heels momentarily for that little stretch. So again, lots of puffiness in the feet when you're pregnant. Most pregnant women wear flip-flops at some point. It's the middle of winter, so you're a bit stuck if you have a baby, if you're pregnant this time of the year. But I bet half of you are thinking, oh, I really wish I could wear my flip-flops. Okay, and then just bring your hands down onto the floor. We're going to lift the knees up, so you might need to make some space for your baby. Push into the hands, lift the knees off the floor, and then drop your heels. And then we're dangling forward. So again, the legs can be as wide as they need to be, so that you've got space for your baby. The knees can be as bent as they need to be, so that you can find the length in the spine. Now, if you've got high blood pressure, you will need to come up now, so come up slowly. If you've got low blood pressure, it will benefit you to stay here a little bit longer. And blood pressure is a very fluctuating thing in pregnancy. Most women have very low blood pressure at the beginning and you get dizzy, you feel faint. And then as the pregnancy progresses, the blood pressure gets higher and higher and higher, until usually towards the end of your pregnancy you've gone too high. So trying to find the blood pressure balance when you're pregnant is quite difficult, because you've now got two circulatory systems to deal with. So you can imagine how difficult it is to find the right balance with your blood pressure. Okay, just grab a quick drink and then we'll do some standing poses.